wheel.
Can't knock this guy.
The reason it's carbon fiber, huh?
R2 doesn't like love.
Nah, this one's okay. What the problem with this one is that it's got a steerable front wheel, and I can't do a hard right. I'll show you what happens. That's what happens. So you have to go slightly forward in that. By the way, I used to operate it. I did an appearance at Disney World one time, and I had to walk down the street with him. And I'm walking along, I'm just following along with him, and I'm with a crowd of people. And everyone's like, I wonder where he is. I said, oh no, I saw somebody over there.
Right on.
That's exactly the same sort of thing, Don, that I discovered with my little mouse. I would walk around with it behind me and just drive them, and people are looking everywhere except for where I am.
Right.
It'll be the next one.
Anyway, R2. So that's the carbon fiber one.
Yeah.
Now, I've noticed that, Don, that this is also the R2 with the camera because it has the hole in the front.
Yeah, the camera's been taken out a long time ago.
okay.
So.
Pictures!
This is the only one that actually is set up like this. Open it up.
Oh, really? Okay. Somebody grab a camera.
Is the Viscount 700 light lamp, is that what they, what you?
Yeah, where's John Sherrill?
John,
What's the name of the airplane?
Viscount.
Mill, and they're all the same in all the heads now.
Wow.
And it's actually just two lamps. You could actually, if there's a set, they're
Talking about that a
halogens.
lot later. Take a look.
Yep. Now, this one's
Now what is this side here? A bank of LEDs?
Yeah, 20 LEDs or whatever it is. And then we couldn't actually change the vary of the color, so what we ended up doing was they're all super bright white LEDs. And we selectively painted some of the fiber optics on that end blue or white. Well, we left it white, clear, red or green on the back, blue or white, blue.
So the same ones always blink the same color?
Yeah, they just twinkle, they get darker and lighter. That's the best we could do in the time we had in response to the color wheel issue.
You see how these?
Oh, it's got a, oh, it's steering.
The biggest problem we had with again, as I was saying last night, is we're always trying to solve a specific problem. We're not trying to make an all-purpose. And the problem we had to solve is that we needed this to go over a door, gaps in floors.
Right, like in Tatooine.
Yeah. And so what we, the biggest problem was that the front wheel as a caster would get hung up on things. So this was our solution, is to put as big a wheel as we can. Well, all of a sudden then it can't be a caster, it can't be a free-floating caster, because the caster needs to be offset, and then the foot had to be bigger. So the next solution was, okay, well, we'll just motorize the front wheel. Well, not motorize the wheel, but
And it
motorize
also
the
helps
steering.
to pull it over, then.
Well, it doesn't actually, it's not motorized, the steering is motorized.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is freewheeling.
Right.
So it's just freewheeling. And that's a custom machine yoke and everything like that. A guy named Mike Steffi did that. And this actually drops out. The motors drop out with one bolt. We've never. I actually only took the motors out once before.
Now there
But at
was
least if you had to.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
there's two wheels in the Star Wars version.
Right. Right. And again, this one, the idea was power, and we tried to put the biggest motor we could get in there. And you wouldn't be able to stop this thing if you tried pushing it. And you could drive it around. That's where the camera used to go, but it's not running.
So how much does it weigh here?
It's pretty heavy. Try picking it up.
I did not.
No
Trust
way.
me, you
We
just said
like
it's not.
Did you use pressure plates to keep the, oh, this was gonna be permanently in?
Yeah, actually, I believe. I think the legs do come off of this. I can't remember if they actually have.
Yeah, no real.
That's why my problem was, you know.
Yeah, you know what?
Well, the biggest thing, what happened in episode 2 is one guy broke one leg and I broke another leg. The legs snap off. If they don't snap off here, they'll snap off here. If they don't snap off here, they'll snap off here.
Look at that.
Where the rock. I know.
Would you like to know where every dent is?
They're in a computer.
Yeah. I saw that, I'm like, oh, wait.
When it's only fiberglass, it's easy.
You're gonna have every channel.
We got 9 channels. What's that?
Is this motor here?
No, this is the motor here. That's the potentiometer. We made our own servo. So this is the electronics decoder encoder from the servo that goes to here, and this gives the position. We're actually having a lot of problems with this right now. Occasionally we have a real sporadic problem with the heads not turning properly. So.
It's like all the weight of the head rests right here on this part.
Well, it does, and it rests on these points too.
Does
Yeah.
it slide? It's like Teflon?
Yeah, they're Delrin.
Vince, did you get the,
Literally.
inside there?
What we did, we did this one, and then for episode 2, when I standardized it, we realized that a lot of them had this bar that went across. We were putting the motors in the head. So this is the only one that can go with this. All the other heads are interchangeable. And so we tried to come up with the same slick presentation of this thing. And what we ended up doing was taking a door hinge on the other ones, taking a door hinge with one of those sliding lock things, So that's all it is. And then they all open up. And the only reason it opens up is so we can get the huge battery pack.
Your LED system just tells you stuff's on, or is that tripped?
No, these are breakers. These are breakers, but yeah, and that just tells us what's plugged in and not. It's actually a holdover from an old system that we had a long time ago. And Grant, who did that, just incorporated. None of the other ones have actually. But they all have breakers in them. So.
What type of speed controller is it?
They're really
Yeah, sure.
Oh, speed controller. Yeah, it's one of the Vantech ones.
Oh, dual tank drive?
Yeah, it's underneath this guy.
Right on.
So that's the one that'll run both off one controller? Yeah.
And then all the mixing is done in the radio.
mixing's done already in the controller.
In the radio, yeah.
How much juice are you putting into the
Just ignore it, it'll go away.
motors off the battery pack? Is it
They're 24 volts.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
two-
so these batteries are all standardized. In other words, you could switch them, but all the wiring, all the parallel series, whatever happens within there. Yeah. And actually, on the other ones, there's an extra battery in these that's only for this robot. On the other ones, the battery doesn't get used, and I can't remember what it's for. But, it's for the steering. There's a battery.
A lot of people were wondering whether the fiber optics in front were just randomly placed or not. They're in rows, man.
What's that?
It's laid out in one piece?
Well, the mold is in 2 pieces. Right. So it was brushed up and together, and then we put the 2 together. Brushed it. Actually, there's a foam core in there. We also laid a antenna in because we were concerned about the carbon fiber, the aluminum. Never had a problem. So we never used the antenna. And then they laid the carbon fiber, put the 2 together, laid foam.
Wait, hold still on the radio.
And then carbon fibered over that. That's what you see here. And
Show me the
and then
battery
they took
pack
it out,
again.
We realized it was actually quite.
Oh, it's a modified Makita.
So one of the guys, realized there was a fiberglassing guy realized that carbon fiber or epoxy actually has a low melting point. So he put it in an oven for like 120 degrees. No, to heat it.
Uh-huh.
And then we made a donut that slipped over it, and then and let it cool. And then this was.
That's what we're talking about doing, is laying one up in carbon fiber.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, and then this was machined. We machined this to fit. So
Yeah, all the cosmetics was all molded.
this is all molded it was in the molding. These are added in. Actually, I think these are.
Those look like glass, and then the prongs were.
No, these are.
Yeah, they look like they're molded.
The vents are.
Yeah, then the vent themselves are like individual. It looks like.
No, this is one of the aluminum. This is actually a casting. It's separate. This is separate. Actually.
Right, and then the little vent panel.
And those
face
go
are-
in there, but that's how all the originals are made. So that's different. I think that was actually might have been molded. No, that's molded in too.
I noticed that they went back and repainted these differently because the front facing is supposed to be clear, and
All of them are.
the
Well, it's actually
original-
silver.
Only this, right, but I mean,
People say
silver, yes,
that
but
they use
only the
resin
sides
castings,
are
but
blue,
they're
and
not.
this one's
They're all the
completely
real
blue.
Well, that's just laziness on my part.
Well, I know what it's like being rushed on set. You
No.
have, you have somebody yelling they want him right now.
Yeah, Nelson, who painted this actually.
I know what the originals look
With
like.
the
I told him,
hypothetical
stop, yeah.
blue.
Stop there. I'll paint it silver later. And I never got to it. So.
Well, and you know what? Only people like us would know.
That's right.
And we are understanding of it.
The one thing I tried to make consistent, even though it was wrong, is I made the legs all the right way.
The ware's going here, so the gels are.
They're all the same on episode 2. They might not be right from movie to movie, but they're all the same on episode 2.
Any kind of diffuser in there?
No, that's all right. I just want to get the bottom.
And you'll also notice that the white milk plexes were set on the side. It's like, instead of flat. Theirs and, yeah.
Now, the one thing it doesn't have is that, you know, sorry, I didn't have that. It doesn't have that ridge.
Right, it didn't have the ring, the ribbing.
It's off the Don post. Yeah.
Well, actually, some of the ones we had don't have it.
No, that's like signing.
Well, Adam works at ILM,
Oh, okay.
and he's a member of the group. Actually, John and Jason met him.
This is a little bit more purple. I've talked to him on email.
Yeah, this is exactly the piece shape like this that we use to try to nail the color. And the problem being with this color, with any of the metallic blues, is that depending on how you look at it, what light you got, it changes. So more obliquely, it might be darker blue, and more dead on, it's a lighter blue. And we went out in line like, it's like, okay, we just decided, okay, that looks right.
Could you put that down again? I'd like to get a picture of the two together. No, lift, yeah, there you go.
Wow. I busted a panel earlier today, and I was like,
Thank you.
9 channel, yeah.
Are you using all the channels?
I think we only use, on this one, we use 7.
I've noticed that the metallic, or the metal, when you're actually painting the metal or you're painting the resin or the cast stuff, you can see a difference in the paint color. Yeah, I don't know what.
But also, a lot has to do with your base coat, your primer.
Yeah, because if you're just painting over the gray primer, it's going to read different as compared to if it's painted over silver
Or a white primer.
or a white. So each one of those will give a different tone value reflection.
Right. Thought it was kind of creepy that the shoulder colors are 6.66. It's like,
It's the sign of the devil.
yeah. I was like, what are you guys doing?
You're blowing people's minds back here, man.
Finance and English technology. No, it's quite heavy. Without the batteries in it, the motors alone got a good 50 pounds. You know, so together, I mean, probably about 25 pounds. Or maybe not that much, but they feel like it. So try lifting it. I mean, you can see how heavy. It's quite heavy.
When you use Spanky, you go get a choke.
Where do you grab it?
Man, he is kind of.
So that one that Joker came into the club and posted on that pool table, airfare.
So what, guys, let's do some Q&A, and then we'll take pictures at the end. Okay.
All right.
We're gonna do individual with Mr. Buddy. What we want to do is answer some questions and actually take some. If you guys have specific ones, we'll let's try to keep it as organized as possible. So we can sit here all night, obviously, but
Okay.
I know that we want to. We really want to try to get some information that you guys want to get, and then.
I'll just start one through. Well, number one is was the lighting pattern. We'll plug it in. You guys can videotape it. How are the legs assembled? Well, it's different from robot to robot. This one is pretty much similar. They're all pretty similar in that we usually use basically what's a large washer, is that big disc in there, and then they're just bolted through with 4 bolts. On some of the Empire era ones, the Tony Dyson era ones, they just put nut inserts into different things. The other thing, where's the video? Who's shooting this? The Tony Dyson ones broke up differently. There was this was one piece, okay. This was another piece. These, of course, were machine add-on pieces. This was another piece, and the way you access this piece to get it off was there's 2 flat bars that went past here. There's a pin that went through here. You knocked out the pin, pulled this thing out, and then you could get to the 2 screws that screwed this to this. This was just glued onto this piece, and this piece was one cast piece, and there were 3 screws back here. Matter of fact, well, you could see 2. That's for something else. Actually, those are cast in, I think. That held this piece to this piece. And then there was just one pivot bolt pointed through here to make the leg pivot. And then there was typically an aluminum. There's nobody from overseas, so I don't have to say aluminium.
Did you hear that, Dave? He doesn't have to say aluminium.
And when I say color, Dave, I'm speaking with a U in it, okay? There's a substructure, a metal substructure, typically that then the motor was mounted to. So in essence, the shell went along for the ride. It wasn't structural. So the only structural points in the thing were the body that was attached to the leg which was attached to this pivot point. And those, of course, are the places, well, I was explaining to someone earlier, we broke 2 legs on episode 2. One of them, because of excess strain, it was trying to go up a ramp, and we turned it sideways, and the weight shifted and snapped the leg. I think it popped this, it just broke the leg this way.
So do you want to get rid of that leg? You have it.
We fixed it.
Oh.
We needed it at R2.
Oh, okay.
And the other place that it breaks a lot is this,
Ankle.
that little ankle, yeah, that little,
Tang, the little
yeah.
funny tang going into the
So, I mean, we had come up with some solutions at ILM, not for this, but, theoretical solutions. If we were to make the ultimate R2, how, different ways we'd approach it. We'll talk about that later. And then the head, again, this is the only one that's unique in that the motor is in the body. All the other ones, like including that R4 that's outside, is the motors in the
R4 that's
Jedi
outside.
Starfighter.
the Starfighter.
Oh, that one,
Yeah.
okay.
The motors in the head on all those.
I can go down and pull that one up there too if you want.
Well, it looks a lot like that one. It's just fiberglass cast head.
Is it better the motor in the head?
The motors that we're using, that is actually something that was established by the UK crew for episode 1, and it seems to work better. Only reason being is that the motors that they put in there were so big and honking that it's those SSPS. What do they call those? They're blue. They're really expensive. They're like $500. They're servos though, and I had to talk Rick into letting me buy 3 of them. But they're SSPS 105 or something like that. I know it's posted on the website. I know I've given you the correct thing. So. And what the beauty of that was, and it was established on episode 1 because they had to swap the heads onto the new Blue Fighters, and they didn't want to have to then put motors in the new Blue Fighters. And that's the beauty of it, is that the motor stays with the head, and so you could put it on any surface. So, and it worked out great for us because then we put the R4 head on there, and all we had to do was have 2 holes drilled, and it just sat in there. So, but I personally, if I were to be building these from scratch, I would do what you guys have already done with the rocker bearing and the thing. That's much better. The only problem that you would have with that, and what's unique about having a servo, is that you always know positionally where it is. It's proportional. You could speed it up or you could slow it down. And you would have to somehow work in some sort of mechanism or electronic device that tells you where the head is in relationship to the thing. So the servo, so it basically becomes a huge servo. So that would be the only thing. Yeah, the same thing about the legs. I'm curious to know where the mold seam might be if the legs are cast from 2 molds. Again, we were using the Don Post molds, but to the best of my knowledge, the mold seams were just along. It was like there was a front and then the back panel in essence. But I know from mold makers' experience that you never want to have a mold seam on an edge. You always want to have it slightly in because then you could take care of the seam a little better. So that's where I would put the mold seam if I were to make a mold. So it's similarly, all of them pretty much had some sort of split somewhere. I know the body was split into 3 parts. There was a 3-part mold. I've got a picture of that. The head was, when they did the fiberglass heads, was again a 3-part.
Wow.
So Tony Dyson's work was just awesome. I mean, I've got pictures, which I wish I'd have brought, but you know why I didn't bring, that show all that stuff. So maybe somehow they'll accidentally get posted somehow. What kind of problems did they have running R2 through the sand and soft dirt in the 4 movies? Well, he doesn't ride in sand and soft dirt. Typically what we'll do is put down a piece of plywood and just cover it. They show in the trailer, and I don't know how much you guys know about the movie, and I mean everything's out for the most part. I'm not allowed to talk about 2 things.
And what are those?
Yeah, and those 2 things are. But in the trailer and some of the stuff footage I've seen today, Anakin and Padme are pulling up to actually it's Watto's house or hut or whatever it is. And they're being pulled by a droid that's pulling a rickshaw.
Oh, rickshaw droid.
Yeah, and there's a shot of R2 flying behind him, going, keeping up really well with them. And what we did with that, we just put 2 wires to a polypropylene sled. And it was in the shape of R2's foot pattern, and we had little like a ski thing coming up, yeah. And then we had the wires go to each corner, and it kept it pretty stable. And we threw sand on the polypropylene sled, and 20 feet away, you couldn't tell. Matter of fact, someone came up to me and said, "Wow, I didn't know you could drive that good." That's how we did it. The only thing that's odd about it is R2's keeping up exactly the same speed as the thing. And also, when they turned the corner, R2 kind of did this like little fishtail.
That's when I turned around and you said you're one hell of a driver. Right?
Yeah, somebody said, "Wow, Don, I never saw R2 work so good." And I sat in the back of the pickup truck just turning his head. So R2 just like looking around and going for the ride. But that's basically what we do. This one actually worked really well in Tunisia, but where we shot with this guy was on the Lars homestead, which is over when Luke looks down in the first films, looks down into the pit. And that wasn't sand, that's actually like dried mud. So and it was a real hard surface. And George had us do this one scene as the sun was rising, which looks like the sun is setting, and they're all walking off into the sunset, which is actually sun rising. And he's, we're going and going, and the actors are going and going, and Archie's trying to keep his best up with Anthony Daniels going and going off into the desert, and no one's yelling cut, and he just kept going until R2 got stuck in a rut, and that's when they cut. So. What was the formula to get R2 to work successfully on sand versus smooth surfaces? Well, basically, like I said, the sand, smooth. I mean, he works great on smooth. Actually, slippery is bad because then he slides all over. The other things that we did have was we had the sand units, what we call the sand units, and they really didn't work that well. They're kind of crappy the way they worked, and basically they just had these 3 motors in each foot with big wheels. That's the ones you see. Yeah. And the idea is that they're supposed to be in sand, so that the thing is. But even those, you got into 2 inches of sand and it just stopped. It didn't go anywhere. And we have in episode 2, we did R5D4 makes a cameo. In the thing, and he just drives by the camera, and that's one of those units. The other thing, that was actually the English crew, the UK crew for episode 1 did, and for some reason they were having the problem with the legs breaking off because they were using these huge heavy motors with those units, and if you use those on like asphalt or something like that, the legs will snap off like nothing because there's so much torque. So what they did is they did a weird thing where, and it defeated the purpose, they rolled the legs in a little closer so those things stand up a little straighter. This is more the proper attitude that R2 should be in. And then they kind of tied it together, inside, so that the legs wouldn't break off. But what that did is it created another problem. Is like you accelerate too fast and R2 just falls backwards. No. And so you see a lot of R2 falling over using those. So that was not a good solution. Again, the best solution was put plywood down and put some sand on it, and that's how we always got around it. Formula to get R2 to navigate stones and door jams. This is the only one that actually could do stones and door jams. The UK crew for episode 1 did come up with a pretty clever solution where they kept the same motors in the back, but instead of the wheel in the front, they used 3 roller bearings on a triangular plate that spun. And it's really noisy. R2's coming, it's like clack, 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 clack. But the thing is, what it allowed it to do is that there was always one wheel that was there. The problem is that those roller bearings could freeze up at any time.
Was that the one they used in Anakin's hovel?
No, that was before they came up with that solution. Yeah, and the way they ended up getting that shot ultimately was pulled it on a wire. So, and the problem with that, and they've gotten a lot of bad press about that one. That's when I got involved.
That shot that's on the DVD where all the actors stop and they laugh, but
they had a horrible day. That's the day they almost all got fired, and that's also the day I got a phone call, and that's when I came over about 2 weeks later. And it had to do with the Hubble set didn't break apart like most sets we make are wild. That set was not wild, and it was like an eighth of this room. It was really
basically built like a real house. You had to operate as if you were stuck.
Well, yeah, there's only so many people could fit in the room at a time, and our 2 operator wasn't one of them. And so he was operating blind for the most part. Plus, they had a concrete surface that was all over the place, and out of that problem is what this guy got born. Several pictures show a receiver antenna taped to the outside of the dome to this improvement performance. I think a lot of those were mistakes. For episode, Star Wars, the original Star Wars, they had all sorts of radio control problems because the radio control was kind of in its infancy anyway. So they didn't, they tried trying all sorts of things to try to solve that. The antenna is when it's in the head, because that's the other place where the motor lies in the head, and also the antenna, the RC, the receiver stays in the head too. And that way the body is just carrying batteries and motors. And everything gets transmitted down through these cables. So when we do it in the head, matter of fact, you can see the remnants of one. We put these cable tie things here, and we just wrap the wire around the head. Of course,
Wasn't there some problem though with the original aluminum R2s simply because they were solid aluminum? And
Well,
they block the RC signal?
probably for the original technology, but we thought the same problem would happen with the carbon fiber and epoxy with the aluminum head. Never had a problem. We use all aluminum R2s still. We still use the episode 4 R2s, and we don't have any problems. So I think those are just trying to solve the problem of the day with the FM receivers and the PCM, you know.
I figured it was a problem between either a combination of that and all that silica. The sand just acts like a big.
Oh, yeah.
distorter
Well,
for the
I mean,
front.
I've heard experiences before the PCM radios and the FM radios and stuff of the whirring of the camera motors.
All of that
Actually
together.
would affect the frequency. We did one before we had this unit. It was one of the parents. We did a commercial at ILM, and every time they'd yell action, the R2 would just freak out and do something else. We found out someone was arc welding.
So these big EM pulses are spiking its signal
Yeah.
everywhere.
That's crazy.
How did ILM solve the problem of R2 standing with a pivoting shoulder and ankle on the legs? I'm not quite sure what that means. If
think they
it's
need
Two-leg
the
to
three-leg
three-leg,
transmission.
Yeah.
standing in two-leg mode when it goes from two-leg to three-leg.
Oh, yeah.
What
okay,
locks
first of
the-
all, we didn't, again, I'm making this distinction once and for all. ILM only made this one. We didn't make any of the other ones. And the UK crew solved that. Actually, it's pretty clever. And it's really hard to explain. It doesn't work completely well. Obviously, it doesn't go back. It only goes forward. In other words, it goes from 2 to 3. It never goes from 3 to 2. The time it does it in episode 1 is a CG one. I don't think we even do it in episode. Oh yeah, it
Good
was.
job,
Yeah.
Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah, Craig.
Yeah, no, yours works much nicer than the real one, but yours doesn't go to the full extension of the
Further forward.
full forward. So I have to criticize you on that.
I
I can't let you have the upper hand.
I
of
wouldn't
course.
make it do that, but I just picture the power window motor gear just stripping.
Yeah. What they did is they had air rams, and it's really noisy. It's funny. It's very archaic, very dangerous looking thing, and pump it up to like 100 pounds of pressure, and there's a ram that goes down and basically triggers a series of buttons.
And basically it was like a spring mousetrap, so it's like tung.
Yeah, it
and
just
in doing so, shoves
just
the-
kind of kicks back and
Yeah, and
drops the
shoves
foot.
the two side
and,
legs outward.
and you can adjust it by depending on how much air pressure you put into
that's
it.
pretty cool.
But we did it once. It fired off on me once. I was standing in front of it, and I wasn't prepared, and it knocked me over. So there's a bar that actually goes across and somehow is connected to the body too. And the air ram is just this big
So
air
as the air
ram.
ram goes down, it pulls the other rod up and pushes
Yeah.
the legs back.
Yeah, it is 2 air rams. I'm sorry, it is 2 air rams. One that does the body and one that does the legs. So. You guys are much more on the way of solving it, a much cleaner, better solution than what they did. They actually did try. I think we never got to work because the stuff was frozen. There was the same one that was how I should say they did it for episode 1 ultimately. They did have a lead screw for an episode for the original film stuff, but I've seen the outtakes. It never really worked.
Because that's actually what I'm doing with mine. I found in a Burbank aircraft surplus store a DC linear actuator, and it has a 10-inch throw, so it completely can throw it. It's slow though, that's its problem. It's just like, so it doesn't go down as quickly, but.
How did okay. If this also means how did we solve the problem of a pivoting shoulder and ankle on the legs? Well, any of the 3-legged R2s are all locked off on their legs, on the top part, and the bottom pivots on that little triangular thing.
Like on this model though, is the leg molded into the foot? Is that all like?
Yeah,
one
that's
piece?
all one piece. I mean, it was several different molds, but we ultimately just combined them all together to be one complete unit. And the leg is structural in its fiberglassing, but I think the biggest flaw in any of the R2 stuff is that there's really nothing structural from the body to that pivot point. And you really need something, I think, consistent, because that takes a lot of stress.
Yeah.
As does the front leg.
Yeah, the
front
ankles are my scariest spot on it.
Was the number of R2s built in different leg configurations a result of not being able to get the third leg to deploy properly? Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, it was easier to have one that was 3 legs and one that was 2 legs. Of course, the 2-legged, most of them were Kenny's. Kenny Baker's. Was a mechanism used to drop the third leg. How is the antenna raised and how is it made to rotate? Is that the sensor thing? Yeah. You know, yeah. I saw a lot of the original guts for from Jedi. When I came along in '87, so all that stuff was just like thrown in boxes, and some of them were stripped out of heads. Some of them still had stuff. A lot of them were just radio car antenna motors. You know, that's pretty much all they did. I mean, some of them were Kenny in there just going. So all the stuff in episode 2 that you see when R2 plugs into something and goes in, we've got the aluminum body that all the back panels are pulled off of my arms in there. You're just doing it. Unlike what we did, I guess for Kenny, he didn't actually he had just a stick and he just kind of he tried to jab the thing. We actually had not a mechanism but a pivot, a hard lock pivot that we would just line up, load it, pull it out, and then they say, okay, action, and we just did it. So
Very cool.
what's the white paint code? I'll get you that. I'd like to know for R2s with working ankles how the cabling for the motors is routed. Is there a slot in the battery boxed ankle or a hollow ankle shaft? How is it achieved? It's incredibly very complex and detailed. We took a Dremel. And, again, this one doesn't pivot, but the battery box has a slotted thing that the wires come out and then go into a hole in here and then just get routed up, and that's all it is. It's nothing as slick as a hollow shaft. How is it take on a Dagobah film with a swamp fish spat R2? I guess there's a lightweight stunned R2 that was shot by a submerged cannon. You're exactly right. Same scene, the R2 periscope was probably moved underwater by a diver on wire. That's right. How was there ever any indication where on R2's head it was positioned? Not to my knowledge, and we haven't had to deal with it, so.
Even in Jedi, when you see it come up, it only just comes up out of the sand. You never see it come up out of R2's head.
Do you know how the mud spitting R2 on Dagobah is done? Yeah, there was I saw it at we had at the archives. It was like they welded a funnel basically. It wasn't a Kenny one, which is what they're asking here. I think you guys nothing. I like Kenny a lot. Nothing against the little guy, but he's not in it. He's not in the movie. The movie's a whole lot. It's usually some poor effects guy sticking in the corner. I'm the only one that's actually got credit for some of this stuff. Usually what they did is they had this little funnel, shaped. It kind of like, it might even be a real thing, something that's already made, but it's a triangular shaped thing that oval, and they just stuck it against one of the things and put a compressor to it with.
Oh, I've seen those. It's a lawn sprinkler head. It's
kind of like that,
shape,
yeah.
and it's got holes in it. They just cut off the front, filled it with mud.
It's a little smaller than a log,
right,
but it's the same shape,
And they put a hose
same
to it and just
concept.
blew the mud out.
We don't do high tech.
Hey, it works.
How is R2 pulled into sandcrawler wires? My guess, they're the only wires visible. Ha! It's just when they used to do shots like this. It says before digital times, before simple wire removal. There was one shot. It might be that shot there. I think they actually might have dropped it and then reversed it. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I've got several ideas. A lot of times when they did do wire stuff back then, they disguised it so you didn't see the wires, and a few times you did see it was just, the way it was. How was Luke's lightsaber shot in the air on the sand barge? I guess pyrotechnically or with compressed air. The hatch was probably moved by an operator. It actually was on we pulled that out of one of these mechanisms. It was a servo with a rack and pinion gear setup, and it just dragged the wedge out of the way. Was there any technical reason why the saber only moves into firing position after the hatch is open, or is it just because it looks cool? Probably because it looks cool. I wasn't there, so. Do you have a range figure on your little remote R2 camera? No, the same camera though that we used. The way we got the idea to use it on R2 was that Grant and I, when I was working at the archives, he got the camera, and I had a radio controlled car, and we popped the camera on the car, and we drove it around the archives at speeds that would have been impossible for me to just view by watching it. So we watched it on a monitor. So that went, from here to the end of the hallway over there, and then we drove it downstairs and stuff. So I would say a few hundred feet is probably This one, we never used it, quite honestly. I tested it out at ILM, I drove around the shop, and I stayed in one spot, and we never needed to use it. Eventually, I pulled it out because I didn't want to get lost, so. What is R2's top speed? Well, it's kind of walking speed for this one. We have another one that goes a little faster. The problem with, if you guys might have run across this, the faster you go, it's harder to control. He also tips over, yeah. So there is like a kind of a slow running speed and then a walking speed. So I don't know what that would translate into. 2 miles an hour, something. Are there schematics or blueprints for the remote control workings of R2? They're really, no. I mean, Grant has schematics for, because he had to lay out the control board for the electronics in the head. All the radio control stuff is just plugged, into the receiver that goes to a servo, so that's pretty straightforward. All the mixing is done in the radio, so there's no schematics other than the light in the head. Did you have any trouble with R2 being too light, maybe bounced around too much? Did they add weight to better balance him? The only time we added weight to R2 is when we did the bungee jump, because he had to be 57 kilograms, and
Disastrous effects.
and so we put some sandbags in his head so he would be top heavy, so his head would go down first. But no, typically weight is always he's always too heavy.
That's just far. Can I ask a spin-off question on this for a moment about that?
Sure.
I'm not entirely sure, and I guess this could be a routine repeat question, but in the first one, it bungee jumps successfully. I swear to God, in the second one, you cut it on purpose.
Yes.
It almost looks like
We did three bungee jumps. The first two were successful. The reason we did the first one, and we wanted to dip his head in the water, and we missed it by 3 feet. So the guy recalibrated the thing. We got the shot of him dipping in the water. And then we didn't know how we were going to cut it, whether we were going to actually have him crash or not crash. We didn't know how we were going to do it. So then we did the third one. The original concept was that the bungee would snap. The bungee operator thought that would look bad for his business. So we did it where he didn't have his stuff connected, and I was up there, I pushed him off 30 meters.
Why was it done? Was that missing?
That was for the R2 documentary that we did, the Beneath the Dome it was called. It's on the.
Oh, so that's like a recreational activity R2 would have.
Right, he was.
Right.
He was
Well,
depressed, he was suicidal or something.
Yeah, he was broken up about the death of his father and stuff like that.
He started taking risks.
There's a guy named Robert Dillingham, he's a mounted policeman in England.
Just for the record, Don, did you write that whole story?
That's a whole nother evening. But
Okay.
I came up with the concept for it, and it went through many mutations, and the final result is not something I'm happy with. But it worked. It worked okay. Everyone seemed to enjoy it. So that's cool. But if you just saw the version I thought of, it would have been better. How much does R2 weigh? Depends on the R2. This one I think is about 150 pounds.
That's what I
Yeah,
would guess.
that's about what I guess after lifting him.
Don't you have 2 of the battery packs in there?
Yeah, there's 2. The last one's a joke, by the way. Does R2 prefer 10W30 or straight 50 weight? So what do you answer? Yeah, there's 2 of those and a 6-volt, and the 6-volt is just a straightforward one of those.
Now, what is that one used for?
That's for the receiver.
Oh.
Yeah, there's 40 pounds of batteries in it, at least off the 12
Yeah.
volts, because they're 5 pounds apiece.
This battery also operates the servos for the little hollow line.
How many channels does he run off of?
This one runs off 7 because we have the mixing for the front leg, front motor done in there. But I have 3 of these and 3 of a Futaba 6XAS or something, a 6-channel, really simple, inexpensive PCM or PPM. No, it's PCM PPM transmitter, and we have 3 of those too, so that at any one time we could operate 6 R2s. When I
Each
think
on a different channel.
yeah, well, these are selective, so you could actually program these to be whatever. And these are nice because if you look at the display on this, I'll have I have all the model selects in here, and so there's 10 of them. I've got what's called Pancake 1 and Pancake 2. Those are the Pancake motor versions. ILM R2 is number 3. Fast R2 is 1 and 2, and there's a Sand R2. We also have the R4, which is the one that's out on the thing, because they all were programmed to do slightly different things, and also their mixing worked out. I have 8, and the 8 one is a 3-leg to 2, 9 is the number sand one, and then 10, my crew in Sydney took one of the toy R2s and made it into a radio control ones, and gave it to me. And I don't have a radio to use it, but I could use this one, so I could drive it around. It works just like the real one. It falls over just like the real one. And they painted it the proper blue.
Who named the
Wow.
R4 on the Jedi Starfighter?
George.
Okay, I was wondering about that. It's clearly an R2 head.
You didn't hear the story last night.
You missed the story last night. It's
Okay.
hilarious.
So
No, I was stuck in an airport in Vegas.
so the first day George is there for episode 2, and we're on set and we're actually trying to work out. I'm showing him how incredibly well R2 will perform in this film, and that you could have complete confidence in it. And we're actually on the Queen's ship, or Amidala ship, or whatever it's called, where and R2 is going to have to plug in, and he wanted to see how it was going to work, and we had to adjust heights. It was art directing meeting and everything, and we just had an R2 there. And so we're there finishing that conversation. He goes, "Oh yeah," and he says, "I got this other robot head, R4, that's got to go on Obi-Wan's spaceship." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm fully aware, of course, of the naming convention, and fully aware how upset people would be if they had the wrong naming convention." I said, "Oh, well, the R4 is that one that looks like a lampshade." He goes, "No, I don't want that one." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, what would be cool is that there's the R3. It's a clear domed one."
R3T7?
And he says, nah. He says, "Can't we just take a R2 head and paint it?" I says, "Well, we can do whatever you want, George." And he says, "Yeah, just paint it." I says, "Okay, well, what color do you want it painted?" He goes, "Well, the spaceship's red, make it red." I says, "Okay, so just wherever blue is on the red." He goes, "No, why don't you be different? Why don't you, whatever's silver, paint red, and whatever's blue, paint silver." And that was how it came about. You think he thinks about these things a lot, don't you? But no, he doesn't.
I was pretty sure that, the books with the naming conventions and all of them.
Oh, he doesn't read those.
That's for the people that are involved in the expanded universe to figure out.
No, he doesn't approve them. He has people improve them, and he always said that he doesn't stick to what anything in the books are said. He makes up. I mean, for example, there was C-3PO was supposed to be 112 years old or something like that, and all of a sudden he made him. And thought they convenient. This one family did everything in the universe. But
It knows everybody in the universe.
They've got the only women in the universe. So I actually tried to convince the head of licensing to try to convince George into calling it R6 or something, because at one point also R4 was going to get off the ship, and there was going to be a truncated body. We're going to make a new
a pancake R2.
Yeah, well, it was going to be a new style R2, a new astromech robot. We were having ideas, it could be like this, and it kind of ended up looking like one of those cheesy Japanese kind of little,
Like a super deformed or something.
Yeah, and so nothing quite worked. And anyway, the scene got cut where he got out. So.
So technically, the R6 is actually permanently affixed to the starship, right?
Yeah, R4.
I mean, the R4, yes.
Yeah. And I think John Knoll came on set. He goes, "Where's the body go?" I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Hey, George, where's the body go?" And he goes, "Oh, they can make a bubble down there or something." And even that, it would have been a long bubble.
Yeah.
So and actually at one point it would have looked like this little bullet was,
shoved through the brain.
Yeah. And then they decided not to do that, and he never got off the ship, and it just ahead.
Did y'all film a scene with the truncated body?
No, we never made it, and we did film the background plate for it, but it never got any further. The scene was cut, and it wasn't even done any work on it further. So.
In the novel, Boba Fett actually talks to his father Jango about which R2 unit would be best for the Starfighter, and they're talking about the Starfighter, and he says they talk about the head was permanently removed, something like that. They actually discussed it in the novel. I don't know, it's detailed stuff.
I know at one point that I had 3 people working with me in Sydney. Trevor Ty, who accompanied me all the way on all the locations. Justin Dix, who some of you might know from, he did a film called Bounty Trail. And he and I were responsible for painting the new C-3PO, the costume, for Tony Daniels. And, well, it's not a new costume, it's an old costume, but we repainted, yeah.
Isn't that a Jedi costume?
Yeah, or a Jedi Empire, somewhere around that era. It's not a Star Wars costume because it's different. And then a lady named, she's from Turkey. Her name's Zeynep Selçuk, and we call her Zed. So Zed wanted to do something. Well, not that she didn't do anything. She did a lot, but she says, "Can I operate?" And so she got to operate all the R4 shots. And so George, I guess in her honor, it's R4 is a girl now. So.
Just on behalf of those that are recording, I just wanted to announce that one of the ladies in our group, she just joined on, and her fiance is making an R2, so she turned around and she said she's going to make one. But she just a week before celebration, she announced, "Guys, I got a question. Can I make the silver a slight hint of pink and make all of blue neon hot pink?"
I think I saw that posting, yeah.
To make the female R2.
Yeah.
I was like,
I'm kind of scared to see how that's going to turn out.
Well, after seeing some of those in the visual dictionary with the tape, with all the tape on them and those patterns, you gotta.
Well, you figure, I mean, we kind of approached it, Justin and I being the fanboys that we were, that we kind of approached it as like, well, people would customize their robots and do their own thing, to them. And plus, you get all sorts of weird paint jobs. So, I think we did like 6 or 7 variations and using the heads and different things. We didn't want to just stick with, okay, only the blue things are painted a different color,
Right.
So we started doing, like I said, pinstripe tape. We took foil tape. We'd make panels different colors, and we got really. One of them had like it came up and then it split off, and the paint job then wrapped around in the bottom. So we did all sorts of weird stuff. We were all getting bored one day, and just sitting there taping, and used black and silver tape on one of them and orange tape on another one. So. And the tape was because what they tried to do on episode 1 was they painted the whole thing with latex, and then they would paint it with house paint over that. And the idea being is, you just peel off the latex. Well, the thing is, the latex got like into all the things.
all the crevices.
Yeah, and it was worse than if they'd have just So, and then you couldn't paint over it because you had this big, thick, chunky stuff all over it. So we decided not to go that route, and we used tape on everything. And when we had to paint over the blue, because the blue's kind of delicate, I think we used like a drafting tape or something that we put on something low tap, something that wouldn't take off the paint.
Blue painter's tape or something like that.
Yeah, and then sometimes we put that on and just paint over that. So.
Really quickly, I know that last night they locked this place up at 9 o'clock. So what I'd like to do, if we can, is if there's any more technical questions that would relate to actually having the R2 here with us, we'll do the technical questions. And then we'll do some group photos and get out of here. And any more of this, like the story time stuff, we can actually take care of at dinner.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
That way we don't rile anybody by trying to stay here after they want to lock up. So any more technical questions that we can actually relate to the R2 or anything like that? Yes?
How do you actually steer your motors? Like you have one motor on each side?
It's with the flaperon feature in the radio control. I'm not quite sure because Grant programmed it. He won't tell me.
How do you actually control it with the hand sort of thing? Right?
It's just the one stick.
uses the Vantech controller, Alex.
The dual drive.
Also, one.
You can
each
mix
thumb.
you can mix 2 channels with the Vantech drive, and then I think if I read it right.
Well, you don't actually mix the channels in the
Oh,
Vantech.
it does use the 2 channels.
It uses
Vantech?
2 channels, and all the
Okay.
mixing's done.
Well, the mixing's done on that because that's the computer processor type.
Yeah.
Anybody else want
way to go.
any shot on the inside, or we get like plenty earlier? Okay.
Just want to make sure.
We're gonna have
Hey,
to
Gary.
see.
Did you see that?
What?
Oh, the. Where? Here?
Yeah, notice something on. You're always giving screens about ribs
Do
and
you?
shoulders. This one doesn't have.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
It's not as obvious as that, but it's there.
It's kind of funny how that worked out.
Dirty, rotten sweet. That does sound like
Busting my tail trying to get it done.
Now keep in mind,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
only
one,
it's supposed to be. I
one
think it's
version of
120
mini.
degrees or not.
Yeah.
100 degrees.
and this is a
Retread
rounded
it,
off.
retread it, retread it.
Occasionally, but Ben Burt
Well,
was
this,
giving me a
the
hard time because
drawings
he says
that I
inevitably,
had for
he
this
says
part,
whenever they cut
you
back to
know,
R2,
the
something's
drawings
different
that
about
I had for
it.
this part.
So, like in a
Didn't
long shot
specify
to a medium
all
shot,
of
he
this.
says, and typically it's always
And this
the
one
red and the
just
blue light. Oops, I just broke it. Maybe I got blue. I'll fix it in a minute.
What broke?
I just pushed the lens in.
We need to edit that tape.
Just poked out our juice.
You know, how long when you're filming, when you're taping? How long is the longest shot? What's the longest shot that y'all took that was one take?
We had a shot in Tunisia where it was about a minute, and R2 had to go from way in the back and come all the way
So, I mean, you never have to operate for a particular shot more than a minute, minute and a half at a time, and then you can fix whatever.
Yeah, usually, I mean, if he's just sitting there, they're talking, R2's looking around, you know, beeping or whatever, and then he just drives out or something. But
What's your favorite type of R2 repair glue?
One of you guys with the camera, one of the things we wanted to do was get a video of the diagnostics on the front, back.
I can get an intake of it too, with this.
Just lights, or is there something with wipes? I know because on the New Hope ones,
There's a wipe. Yeah, no, these are just. I'll show you when I have to pull that off to fix it.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know.
Marshall. Does the light change pattern, the blue and red?
It's consistent. I mean, it's equally. It's a timer in there, and it's equal.
But the red is longer than the blue.
It's not supposed to be. It might have slipped over time. So anyway, the steering forward.
Can you move the? We get a shot of the hollow eye moving around. So you actually can get that to go up and down, straight up and down.
Yeah, I've also got limits on the servos programmed into here so that I don't burn out the servos. So it'll only go so much.
That's very cool.
And we also had it hooked up. We had a spare channel where at one point his light had to come on.
What's your dome turn? Dome rotate.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Can I get in this way?
Oh, look at that.
I'm seeing green,
It's
red,
a
white,
little switch on the
blue.
side.
Plus the ones that are like
still for just a
always
second.
stay the same color?
Yeah, okay.
It's the solid state.
It's just
no,
translucent.
the only thing that we
paint on
bought
the
is
ends of
from
the
All
fibers
Effects. We
then.
bought these things so
Like
that we have
stained
one
glass
better.
paint.
Oh, it's white fiber no matter what?
It's almost like a mine's
All right.
White fiber and probably
Didn't get to
stained
your
glass paint
question
on the
about
ends
the.
to give it the color.
So the.
Go forward, you push
They
it
just
out.
flicker.
Forward,
They don't
back.
actually do the color wheel.
So that function of like.
So it'd be the same.
29 rows of 4.
That's on this one.
29 rows of 4.
29 and 4.
Those are rings of actually one. It wasn't in.
Hey, you got that one.
You guys want to do photo ops, you and Don in the group, and then we'll do one big group? Yes. That'd be cool. Some emotion.
They're the only ones who love me.
What? James, does this zoom in? No. Okay.
So Don, have you ever seen one of the real models?
They might want to.
Very cool. All right, who's next?
Is it all like put on the ground?
Alex, can you take some on mine?
Hey guys, just
Here you go.
How do we
That's
operate
it.
closing down a 7-block radius.
I mean,
If you want to
Yeah,
use the
we'll
view,
see.
just hold on. Just hold it until it comes on.
You're gonna want to get in and get parked
And
probably
there's a
before
zoom
7
in and
a.m.
out.
Oh,
Try and be here like 6.
So zoom in and out.
Someone's phone.
right here's
Ready?
press up to zoom down, down.
Let's give R2 a hug. Come on.
Smile.
How's that?
That looks good.
Alex, get them on one. If all of them fit.
What if you missed that 7? What's the next time you can get in?
Who's next?
11, after 11.
After 11?
7 to 11, I think is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, blink that.
I just might sleep in.
Me too.
Oh,
We can get in after 11, but
Hold
we're
on.
able to get back into this area.
Hold
You're
on.
not driving in now.
1, 2,
So we're
3.
coming at 11 then?
I'd prefer them to come at 7.
Okay.
Let's
Got it.
Who's got lots of digital film?
Frank, is all you have?
Alex, do you have a zoom on you?
Yes. Very front. So no. Yeah.
start getting old. It's really
Did it turn out all right? Yeah, it looks good. Hold on, Craig. Hold, stay. Hey, No, I actually squeezed it under my arm.
Don, you need to take at least like $5 maybe. Do that. We need to rearrange the voice.
You could jump down before, or sit down and some stand up behind.
Who's having trouble? You get it? Okay. Alex.
Come on, Alex. Second security or something.
Alex, want me to do a second one?
Oh yeah. We do improvement.
Men and droids.
There you go.
Well, maybe. There. That's a good shot.
He did the dance, you know, that's copyrighted, don't you? Oh, yeah, look at the art going around there.
Ooh, baby.
Oh, that's not like we have.
You always wondered what goes on with these.
Thanks.
You're welcome, sir.
Crazy?
It's that Black Sabbath R2.
Hey, Keith, how come you're not offering Don our club logo tattoo?
Hey, I got the stuff back at the shop, so.
Yeah, let's do another one just in case.
I think I might have been looking.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't smile now.
Great.
Everybody done?
I got one more.
Oh.
Caroline wants one too.
Mike, look out, man. Come on, Mike. I'm gonna do two. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And then one long way.
Oh, the belly, no, not that over.
Let's see.
Definitely that one.
1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Hey, Caroline?
Hello.
Yay.
That's it?
Okay. Anybody else before we do the group
My
shot?
turn now.
No, I got
My first electronic problem.
That's very cool. I've never seen that, but I know David West Reynolds made one for visual pictures.
This is a replica.
I know this is gonna sound great. My badge.
Okay. You want with this or?
Will it stick to the badges?
Yeah, this. How's that look? Spanky. That one.
What?
You using mine?
Oh.
How many is planning on going to dinner with us tonight if we go out?
Where you going?
I don't know. I tried.
Oh, it's 9:15.
Of all things, this is.
We can all blend together.
Oh yeah, that was very good. Mac,
See you guys all tomorrow.
No. She's giving me an evil look. We need to get it fresh.
What's the second?
Thanks a lot. There's one more thing. One of these
Yeah, during. I'll just put my name there. That way to get other.
Pretty cool, huh, Vince?
It's too much.
I'm just gonna grab it. It's a quarter inch.
No, it's